which would enhance the safety and minimize the chances of the rhexis tear extending all the way to the posterior capsule.
How we deal with a discontinuous rhexis, which I know you and I never make.
Or even if you chop, you can do it cross sculpting. Once you've got 4 fragments ready, the next important thing would be
From the 7th annual winter meeting of the IIRSI in beautiful Amritsar, I am Josh Young. I'm here with Deepak Megur. Deepak, we're talking about an interesting subject. I understand with you and me, it's purely hypothetical. It is how we deal with a discontinuous rhexis, which I know you and I never make. But if we have a discontinuous rhexis, what are we going to do to minimize likelihood of wraparound and PCR and all of these nasty things that we don't want to see? So tell me about it.
Yeah, the first disclaimer here would be if at all you are not comfortable doing phacoemulsification in such a situation, it is perfectly all right to abort phaco and convert to ECC and SICS. It's your choice. But if you decide to continue with phacoemulsification, I would practice certain modifications in my technique which would enhance the safety and minimize the chances of the rhexis tear extending all the way to the posterior capsule. So usually I would like to call it as my 10 commandments, and starting with first would be, when you have an Argentinian flag sign, the first thing which you need to do is put a little bit of OVD and then make a bigger capsulotomy. You cannot call it a rhexis because it has to be a capsulotomy, it's discontinuous, but you need to have additional space to work around. So that's the first thing in it. You need to use a micro scissors, extend on both the sides, get a decent 5 millimeter, 5.5 millimeter opening for you to work around. That's the number one. Number two, no hydrodissection, no nucleus rotation. All your maneuvers inside the bag has to be done without having any of these maneuvers. Number four, maintaining the chamber equilibrium, extremely important. Probably that's the most important thing here, because any fluctuation in the chamber is going to risk the advancement of tear beyond the equator. So how do you attain this? One thing is constantly replenish with your non-dominant hand viscoelastic whenever you come out. The second alternative, which I have found very, very helpful even for a beginner novice surgeon, is use an AC maintainer. When you use an AC maintainer, the chamber equilibrium is constantly maintained by itself. You don't have to bother. Even if you come out, it is still maintained. Number five would be use low infusion pressures. Like in the sense, you don't want to work a pressure which is with a high bottle height. So 90 centimeters, 100 centimeters. No, that's the usual thing. So here, both the AC maintainer bottle height and your infusion of the phaco, they have to be around 50 to 60 centimeter bottle height. That would be around 40, 45 IOP. Okay, that's what. Number four, when you want to divide the nucleus, you have to divide the nucleus without rotating it. Here, what we use is something called as a cross sculpting. You do a main sculpt and you can cross sculpt like this without rotating the nucleus. So you don't have to rotate to get it to opposite side to sculpt. Or even if you chop, you can do it cross sculpting. Once you've got 4 fragments ready, the next important thing would be bring one piece out of the bag. This would alleviate any stress on the bag. You have an empty bag. Minimal rotation of the remaining fragments would not put any stress on the torn edges for it to extend. So pull one out of the bag. Next would be supracapsular emulsification. Remove the fragments out of the bag, emulsify them. And every time you come out, ensure that the maintainer is on or viscoelastic is replenished. And lastly, when you come out, ensure that when you put a lens, you have to ensure that the haptics are 90 degrees away from the axis of the rhexis tear, so that that remains stable for a longer duration of. You can put a lens in the bag. It has to be 90 degrees to the extension of the tear. And lastly, and probably the most important, would be always watch out for the flap motility sign. The flap, observe the torn edges of the intercapsular tear. They have to be everted and fluttering all the time. If this is there, then it is you're in a safe zone. The moment you find that the flap fluttering is reduced or it has become stiff, then you better abort your phacoemulsification and immediately convert. And lastly, of course, when in doubt, always safe to convert.
This is, first of all, I love the way that you laid this out, because often when we're in a situation surgically that is not optimal, it can be difficult to sort of lay out a path clearly because you're so involved in the moment. And I love how you've sort of laid out stepwise. It sort of offloads some of our cognitive processes and lets us work. I also love the way that you're effectively talking about balancing the anterior and posterior pressures so that you don't have this this pressure coming up that is going to tear things out further. What if it's not an Argentinian flag setting? What if it's not a white cataract, just a regular capsulotomy that is discontinuous? How do you manage that?
I would follow the same principles, no modification. So the principles are going to remain the same. No hydrodissection, no nucleus rotation, dividing the nucleus in situ, be very gentle, pull one fragment out of the bag, and then it's much more safer.
Yeah, no, this is very, very neat stuff. I do a great deal of resident teaching, and the words that I use for the residents in a setting like this is once you have purchased on the heminucleus or quadrant or whatever it is, pull it towards your navel, because otherwise the temptation is to pull up, and of course that's putting pressure on the capsule towards your navel until it clears the rexus, then lift it up. Yeah,
That's a good point.
yeah, no. Really practical, really interesting stuff. I think the innovation is the way that you've laid it out in the stepwise commandments. I really love that. I want to thank you for making this a complicated topic so clear. But mostly I want to thank you for your generosity, for your time with me today.
No, it's my pleasure and privilege to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.